Good evening, I'm Allie Corey.
And I'm Mark Wilson. So glad to have you with us here at 6. First up tonight, a 21-year-old man is facing a charge of first-degree murder after deputies say he killed his own mother in a violent rage. Happened in Eagle Lake last month.
A man is pulled from a wrecked car on the side of the highway. He's unconscious. There's blood on him, blood on his hands, blood on his clothes. And the paramedics on scene look at his injuries, and they look at that blood, and something ain't adding up. This crash didn't cause all of that. So where did it come from? Miles away, in a quiet house on a street called Wilder Way, a woman is lying in her office. She's not moving. She won't move again. Her name was Margaret Dufour. She was 56 years old. She was a nurse. And in just a few hours, the world is going to find out that the blood on that unconscious man belonged to his own mother. Let me tell you something. This is one of those stories that's going to sit with you. Because this isn't a stranger. This isn't a break-in gone wrong. This is a son. And this is a mother who spent her whole life taking care of people, who packed up her entire life just to save the one person she loved the most. It didn't save her. It ended her. This is the story of Margaret Dufour and her son, Gibson Nash. Stay with me.
Welcome to Crime and Love, where love meets crime. Every story has two sides.
Margaret Dufour was a nurse. That's not just a job title we're throwing in for background. That's who she was at her core. She spent her career caring for other people, showing up for strangers on their worst days. That's the kind of person she was before any of this ever touched her own front door. Her son, Gibson Nash, was 21 years old. And according to what family members later told investigators, Gibson had a history of mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. This wasn't something that came out of nowhere after the fact. This was something the family had been living with, dealing with, trying to manage for a long time. Anyways, here's where it gets heavier. Gibson didn't just have a mental health history, he had a violence history too. Before any of this happened in Florida, he'd already been arrested multiple times for domestic violence back in Tennessee. And one of those incidents, he came at his own mother with a knife. Sit with that for a second. A knife against his own mother. And still, Margaret didn't walk away. So what did she do instead? She moved. She packed up her life in Tennessee and relocated to Florida, to a house on Wilder Way in Eagle Lake, specifically to get her son help. Not to escape him. Not to protect herself from him. To be closer to him so she could get him the treatment he needed. Girl, let that marinate. A woman with a nursing career, a woman who understood illness and treatment better than most people ever will, looked at her own son's diagnosis and made a choice most people wouldn't make. She moved toward the danger because she believed she could fix it. Because she believed in him. Now here's the thing about mental illness left unmanaged. About violence that's already shown its face once. It doesn't just disappear because somebody loves you enough to move states away. The warning signs were already there. The knife incident in Tennessee wasn't a one-time thing that got explained away. It was a preview. Family knew about the diagnosis. Family knew about the prior violence. And still, life went on the way it does. Day to day, under one roof. A mother trying to hold things together for her son, hoping that proximity and care and access to treatment would be enough to keep everybody safe. I said what I said. Hope is not a safety plan. And on July 21st, whatever fragile balance existed in that house on Wilder Way was about to break completely. July 21st. That's the day everything came apart. We don't have a minute-by-minute account of what happened inside that house on Wilder Way. Nobody who could tell us is left to give it. What we know is this. At some point that day, inside Margaret's own office, in her own home, her son turned on her. She was strangled. She was beaten. And by the time it was over, she was gone. Let that sit for a moment. Not a stranger. Not an intruder. Her own son, in her own house, in the room where she probably worked and paid bills, and lived her everyday life. That's where it happened. After it was done, Gibson didn't call for help. He didn't call anybody. Instead, he took her car, Margaret's own car, and he left. He got on US 27, and while he was driving, he was involved in not one, but several hit-and-run crashes. Multiple wrecks, one after another, on a public highway in broad daylight. And here's the part that should stop you. He wasn't just leaving the scenes. He was doing it while covered in his mother's blood. When deputies finally got to him, Gibson was unconscious, pulled from the wreck, not responsive, and the paramedics on scene immediately clocked something wasn't right. He had blood on him, on his hands, on his clothes, and it was way more blood than what you'd expect from a car accident like that one. The injuries didn't match. The math wasn't mathing. So they start digging. Where did all this blood come from? And that question is what cracks the case wide open. Investigators trace the car back to its owner, Margaret Dufour. They go to her home on Wilder Way in Eagle Lake to check on her, and that's when they find her, in her office, dead. A medical examiner would later confirm what deputies already suspected the moment they saw her. She'd been strangled and beaten to death. And when they tested the blood found on Gibson from the crash scene, it came back a match. It was hers. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd didn't mince words about what his people walked into that day. He called it one of the most personally violent murders his department had seen in a very long time. Read that again. A sheriff who has seen decades of cases, calling this one of the worst for how personal, how brutal it was. Moving on, because there's more to this. On top of the murder charge, Gibson was also hit with 2 felony counts for leaving the scene of a crash involving injury. Because remember, this wasn't just one wreck. It was a string of them, drivers and property left behind on US 27, while he kept going. And then, before he ever set foot in a jail cell, Gibson ended up in a hospital bed. He'd overdosed on Tylenol, and it put him into liver failure. So while deputies were working to confirm what happened to his mother, Gibson was fighting his own medical crisis in a hospital, under guard, waiting for the moment he'd be well enough to be booked. But hey, the case against him wasn't waiting on him to recover. The evidence was already there. The blood matched. The car was hers. The scene told its own story.
Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd says Gibson Nash was involved in several hit-and-run crashes on US 27 on July 21st.
He's unconscious. He's got blood on his hands. And the paramedic thinks, this is not a bloody kind of crash. Where did the blood come from?
Through the investigation, it was learned he stole the car from his mother, 56-year-old Margaret Dufour. When they responded to her home on Wilder Way in Eagle Lake, they found her dead in her office. A medical examiner determined she was strangled and beaten to death.
It's one of the most personally violent murders we've seen in a very long time.
Investigators say the blood found on Nash belonged to his mother, and he was charged with first-degree murder. He adds he had been arrested for domestic violence multiple times in Tennessee, including a time he charged at his mother with a knife. The sheriff says his family members told detectives he has a history of mental illness, including schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Dufour had just moved to Florida to try and get her son help.
But I want you to see a nurse, a helper, a mother who never gave up on her son. And it cost her life. To a difference maker, to a mother, to a nurse. I want to introduce you to Margaret Dufour. She's 56 years of age. And this is an award she got for being a difference maker. She was a registered nurse, and she helped a lot of people along the way in her profession. And she had a son that had some significant issues. And she moved from Knoxville, Tennessee to Florida. She not only moved to Florida, she moved to Polk County. She not only moved to Polk County, she moved to Eagle Lake in a brand new house. A brand new house. And she had been an employee of Bartow Regional Hospital as a registered nurse for about a month. She'd lived in her new house about a month. She was assigned to the surgery floor. And here's the interesting part. We got a disturbance call at the house when she was moving in because apparently the movers tried to upcharge her or charge her more money. So deputies were sent and immediately were able to calm down the disturbance. The movers left in a huff because they didn't get what they wanted, apparently. And our deputies actually helped her move into her new house. That's the kind of customer service our deputies do. Now, there was no fanfare over that. In fact, we just discovered that when she moved in, that we helped her move the boxes in after the disturbance with the movers on July 21st. So how did we discover that on July 21st? Well, here's how we found that out. Here's Margaret's vehicle. Margaret's vehicle is a 2022 BMW. So if you look to see, you say, my goodness, new house, 2022 BMW, registered nurse, things are going real well in life. And suspiciously, we receive a call. And we receive a call about a hit-and-run crash that happened on Highway 27 North, just about the Ridgewood Lakes development. Well, the hit-and-run involved this vehicle. The first hit-and-run, the lady pulled in behind the driver of this vehicle to try to exchange information, and he wouldn't exchange information, and he drove off. And then he was involved in crash number 2. And he ran from that crash. And for reasons unknown, the driver in her vehicle crashed when they crossed over the center line and hit another vehicle. EMS and fire responded, and the driver was unconscious. It was a significant crash, but it was like, why is he unconscious? And this is who they found, Gibson Nash. But they didn't know who he was. He's unconscious. He's got blood on his hands. And the paramedic thinks, this is not a bloody kind of crash. Where did the blood come from? But anyway, they take him to Lakeland Regional Hospital immediately as a trauma alert and have no idea why he's in the condition he is. So the deputies, this all starts about 7 o'clock in the morning on July 21st, which is a Tuesday. Deputies start their investigations. They run the tag number, and she's appropriately re-registered her vehicles, and it says that it's at this house in Eagle Lake, Florida. The deputies come there, and they knock, and they knock, and they knock, and no one answers. They determine that obviously it's Margaret Dufour's residence, registered, that's who the vehicle's registered to, and they do some more research and call the hospital, and they said, no, she's not working today. So by now it's about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Gibson is unconscious. They have since found some paperwork on him, but now they're wondering where Margaret is. She won't answer the door. So our deputies are looking around the house, and one of them lifts a floor mat up at the front door and finds the key, unlocks the door, and goes in. As our deputies enter the front door of the house, They look immediately to the left in a bedroom, which is set up as an office, and there's Margaret, stomped into a bloody puddle in the middle of the floor, obviously deceased. So as you can imagine, all kinds of bells and whistles go off at the sheriff's office, and we go, whoa, we've got more than what we thought occurring here. Well, of course, we determined that Gibson Nash, who's 21, is the son of Margaret. He's 6'2" and weighs 218 pounds. He's a big guy. And it turns out he's a very dangerous guy. So our detectives start the investigation, and we learn that the reason she has just moved from Knoxville was to try to get Gibson Nash more help, because he's apparently bipolar, he's schizophrenic, he may be autistic, and she wanted to get into the state of Florida. She thought there would be better mental health help, and to get him away from the environment. You see, he was well known to the Knoxville law enforcement authorities. On several occasions, there was 911 calls, and Gibson had been arrested up there. He'd been arrested up there on one occasion with a 911 call on the 6th of April, where Margaret had called from a smoke shop. She had gone into a smoke shop, locked the door, dialed 911, and said, "My son attacked me last night. He's in the car, and I'm afraid. I'm locked in the smoke shop. He assaulted me this morning. The only way I got him to calm down was I agreed to come to the smoke and vape shop. Law enforcement arrived and found out that he had, in fact, threatened her with a knife on the night of the 5th. So they arrested him. He got out of jail in Knoxville. Then there was another disturbance on April 29th where he pulled a knife on his mother and threatened her again and said, you know what will happen. And this was over not being able to play on the Xbox. So he threatened to kill her again. Then she moves to Florida, and she goes back to Knoxville, and she bonds him out of jail on the charges and brings him home. Now, about 4 or 4:30 in the morning, one of the neighbors hears a disturbance next door and hears a couple of thuds. Doesn't think anything of it, looks outside, doesn't see anybody, and goes about their way. And then we have the 3 crashes. Well, he stole his mother's car and he fled. And when he had the 3rd crash, he was unconscious. Well, we learn after he gets to the hospital in a series of tests, he's in liver failure. He apparently has overdosed on Tylenol. So Lakeland Regional transfers him to Tampa General. He's unconscious all of this time. They do an evaluation. He starts to improve. They send him back to Lakeland Regional. We take his clothes and his shoes, where there's blood all over them, and send that to a lab and receive DNA results that it is, in fact, Gibson's mother's blood all over his shoes. The medical examiner says she died from blunt force injury, from a beating, and from being strangled to death. She was violently murdered at the hands of Gibson Nash. That explains the blood that the paramedics saw at the scene of the crash that was not a blood type crash. That explains all of the blood on Gibson's shoes that morning in this crash that otherwise should not have revealed any blood. It was his mother's, where he choked her and strangled her and kicked her and tortured her and killed her. His dad came from California, hired him a lawyer. The lawyer says, oh, you can't talk to him. Fortunately for us, he made some admissions without being interviewed. But here's the deal. She had a new house. She had a new job. She was a wonderful lady. She was a great mother. She would not give up on him even after he'd threatened to kill her and pulled knives on her and hit her and attacked her. Ladies and gentlemen, we have photographs of progressive bruising on Gibson's hands and feet. Remarkable bruising on his knuckles and on his feet from where he kicked and stomped and beat his mother. It's one of the most personally violent murders we've seen in a very long time. But I want you to see a nurse, a helper, a mother who never gave up on her son. And it cost her her life. Are there any questions?
Do you believe taking the Tylenol was a suicide attempt that morning after he killed her?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Do you think taking all the Tylenol, was that a suicide attempt after he killed her?
Well, certainly we believe that he took an overdose of Tylenol. We don't know if he thought it would kill him or he thought it would get him sympathy. It got him neither. It didn't kill him, and it didn't get him any sympathy. And we have built a remarkable case. He's charged with first-degree murder of his mother. And I can't think of many things that are more horrible than a man killing his mother. Someone who brought him into this world, who raised him up, who took care of him, did not abandon him even after the beating that he gave her over and over and over, moved all the way to Florida, bought a new house, started a new job, went back, got him out of jail, and this was her last-ditch hope to get him help and get him away from the environment he was in. And it got her murdered.
Was it just the two of them living in that house?
Just the two of them.
Any weapons on scene?
No weapons. Just his feet and his hands.
You said he made some admissions that weren't part of the interview. Can you say anything more about what he said?
No, he made tacit admissions to us, but the details we won't release right now.
Sheriff, do they have a history of fighting with each other, any kind of domestic disturbance on
Him attacking her in Knoxville, Tennessee, on more than one occasion, to the point the sheriff or the sheriff's representative from Knoxville, and that's no small place, called down here to the hospital and said, hey, y'all be careful of this guy. He's very dangerous. He's very dangerous. He is slated to be released from the hospital into our custody sometime today. And we will keep him in the jail. And as you know, with first-degree murder cases, it'll take 4 or 5 years. So we've got a very violent, a very dangerous person to go with the other violent, dangerous people we have in jail that we do our best to safely house and keep every day.
Do you expect him to
They dropped the charges in Knoxville. They go, well, you know, he's really not capable of being tried. The reality is there was a sympathetic victim, mother, and the prosecutor looks at that case and says, hey, how do we prosecute this when our star witness bonds him out of jail, defends him? So they just washed the case, is what they did. They go, you know, we've got bigger cases to deal with here, as opposed to just a domestic. But yet they knew how dangerous he was at the sheriff's office, where he was. But Mom's doing her best to help. She didn't want him to have any more problems. And Tennessee was glad to get rid of him. And now we have him.
Do you know, was he on any other kind of medication?
He was prescribed medication. Whether or not he was on it at the time, I don't know.
You mentioned bipolar and schizophrenia. Are those like confirmed diagnoses?
That's what they said. We've not confirmed that. Bipolar, schizophrenic, and maybe autistic.
They being like his family members?
Family members told us that.
Sheriff, do you know in any of his previous cases with the domestic disturbance, did he ever claim that she was the aggressor?
Not that I'm aware of. But he was just, if he didn't get his way, what he wanted, he turned super violent toward her. And yet she's the only one that would put up with him and try to help him. But it's not just the nurse instinct, it's the mother instinct. You know, mamas are wonderful things. And that's why it crushes us when we see that someone can actually not just murder their mother, not just murder their mother. Let me say that again, not just murder their mother, but stomp her into the ground and choke her. This is one of those cases that there are no appropriate answers for. And she did everything she could, and she had medical knowledge and abilities, and she was doing the very best that she knew how. And it cost her her life.
Was this her only son?
I think she's got 2 other children.
Once Gibson was medically stable, he didn't go home. He went straight to the Polk County Jail, where he was booked and formally charged. First-degree murder. 2 felony counts of leaving the scene of a crash involving injury. The charges laid out exactly what he'd done, in the order he did it. The killing first, then the running. There's no long courtroom battle to walk you through here. No dramatic back and forth of witnesses on a stand. What matters most isn't a trial transcript. It's the picture investigators already had before he ever set foot in a courtroom. A mother strangled and beaten in her own home, her blood on her son, her car used to try and get away. Period. The facts spoke for themselves before a single hearing ever started. Here's what people need to sit with when they hear this story. Margaret Dufour was not a woman who ignored the danger in front of her. She was a nurse. She understood illness. She understood what schizophrenia and bipolar disorder could look like when they went untreated. And she knew her son had already come at her with a knife once before. She didn't run from that. She moved toward it. She uprooted her whole life and relocated to Florida to get him help, because she believed that with the right treatment, with her close by, things could still turn around for him. Make it make sense. A woman spends her career saving other people's lives, and in the end, the one life she couldn't save was her own, at the hands of the son she was trying to save. This case isn't here to tell you what to think about mental illness, or about family, or about how much love is too much love to give somebody who's hurting you. That's not our place. What we can tell you is what happened. A mother who never gave up on her son, and a son who took everything from her. You can decide what that means to you. Rest in peace, Margaret Dufour. A nurse, a mother, a woman who kept showing up right up until the very end.